Welcome to Get Unstuck, Move Forward with Your Life. I am your host, Jason Hopcus. Thank you for joining us today. Today, I'm excited to have my friend and colleague, Melissa Moore. Melissa is an award-winning radio veteran who has been in radio and television broadcasting for more than 25 years. Melissa's career has taken her around the country, hosting various award-winning shows in Orlando, Minneapolis, and a syndicated worldwide show out of Nashville. In 2013, Melissa joined Bonneville, Denver on the country powerhouse KYGO before moving on to the legendary Cozy 101.1 in 2018. Melissa has won numerous awards, including 2 Colorado Broadcasters Award for Best Midday Show and a National Gracie Award from the Alliance for Women in Media. She is actively involved in the community and currently serves as a celebrity ambassador for the nonprofit A Precious Child. She also hosts a weekly community-focused program called Mile High Magazine on all Denver Bonneville radio stations. Besides hosting middays on Cozy 101, Melissa is an avid writer and is currently writing a book and getting ready to launch her own podcast this spring, Unshackling the Soul. Melissa, welcome. It is an honor and pleasure to have you here today as a radio veteran. I feel like I'm not worthy to have this conversation, but I'm so grateful that you're here.
Well, I am so grateful to be here. I love doing this with you. And I like being on the other side here. This is different for me. I'm always the one, maybe it's that control freak in me, but I'm always the one, spinning the plates and asking the questions. So this is exciting.
Well, I'm glad you're here. And really, the reason I wanted to have you on is you write this amazing blog that I follow on social media. And you had a blog post recently. And in fact, many of your blog posts are about relationships. And relationship is kind of the essential core element that guides all of our lives, whether it's interpersonal relationships, work relationships,
Right.
romantic relationships.
Yeah.
And I knew that there was a connection point. You and I have talked about this sparked or inspired conversation pre-COVID even,
Yeah.
and thought, let's talk about relationships.
Yes.
And the last blog post you did, and I'm going to paraphrase this, was, really asking the question is effort worth it in relationships? Yeah. And I would love to have, some time with you just to kind of unpack that a little bit.
Yes.
and get your ideas and inspiration behind this idea of relationship, and that we're evolving as humans, having this human experience.
That's it. And I think for me, when I was writing the blog, I was really trying to decipher between effort and work, because there was that thing, oh, relationships take a lot of work. And you hear that often. And so all of a sudden, whatever you and I think that definition of work is, that's what we put on our relationship. And so when somebody told me relationships take a lot of work, to me, it meant, oh, it's going to be they should be somewhat miserable. And you're going to have to really put in effort and, just be places you don't want to be and stick it out when you don't want to. And after 2 marriages and 2 divorces, that's not what my reality has been.
I think that is wonderful insight. And I often say experience is the best teacher. Of course, I don't have any official divorces under my belt, but I have many failed relationships. And I always think the spotlight done well is to shine back on a couple of things. What did I learn? Yep. And B, what would I never do again? What have your experience has been like in going through kind of loss and change in relationship?
I think the one thing that I came out of I was married for 16 years.
Okay.
And was married to an addict that I didn't realize was an addict for the first 6 years of the marriage.
Okay.
And what I found is that I went into fix it mode and save it mode.
As many of us do.
Yeah. And I'm like, I am going to save him. And somehow I wrote myself as like the heroine of the story. Like, I didn't deal with my own hurt and pain. What I did is I went into fix it mode. I'm going to save him. I'm going to save the marriage because I did not want to be a 40-year-old that was divorced twice. Like, no, that was not going to happen. And so what that lesson taught me is I don't do fixer-uppers. I don't do fixer-uppers. If somebody, because that marriage ended in divorce and it should have ended 10 years before it did. But I hung on there trying to fix it. And so what it left me with a sense of, somebody, if they want to fix themselves, if they want to get healthier, if they want to improve upon themselves, they've got to do it for them and not because you gave them an ultimatum. And for me, I need to focus on me and making myself the most healthy and being present in a relationship. Because when you become the fixer, you're focused on the other person.
Right. It's
You're
always
not
somebody
dealing with
else's
you.
problem. You're perfect.
Yeah. Like, oh my gosh, like it's all about you and I'll fix you. And I'm not dealing with me.
Right.
And, the story of how did I get here? How did I pick an addict? What was my role in all this? I didn't do any of that. What I did
think
was
that's really great discernment. I mean, the fact of the matter is, I'm sure other people listening have found themselves in similar places. An obvious question that comes up for me is, how did you end up in something for 6 years and not realize that you were living with an addict?
He was really good.
Wow.
So, addicts are amazing liars when they're in their addictions.
Right.
And he had two totally separate lives going on. And it wasn't until I got an email from his girlfriend of several years, and I was doing a morning show in Orlando, and it says something you should know about your husband in the subject line. I open it up and find out he has girlfriends on the side. He had this whole other life, meeting women in different cities when he worked, and I had no clue. No clue.
And I would love to say that you're unique in this experience, but I don't think that's a unique experience these days. Do you?
No, I don't think so. I think when it comes to sex addiction, which at that time when he was diagnosed, it was very different.
Right.
We were just learning about it. It was kind of like you had your alcohol addiction, you had your drug addiction, and those were easier to see. Like I knew he had some problems with alcohol, but this I didn't know about. And I've looked back and I can honestly say I knew nothing about it. And would that happen to me again? I would sure hope not, because now I know things I didn't know then. I got married in my 20s. I was young. I was naive. I knew our relationship took a lot of work. It wasn't just effort, it was work to keep things going. But I didn't know about that.
I think that's really wise reflection and being able to look at, I didn't know what I didn't know. I often say that I think as humans, we show up and do our best, and sometimes our best is not good enough. And a lot of times the not good enough piece comes from that awareness or recognition that you don't know what you don't know. And if you're not wired to be thinking about, is my husband going out and doing all these other things, I think it's really easy to live in your lane of, yeah, this is hard and this is work,
Right.
But maybe it's always like that for people.
Right. That's what I thought. And I thought, okay, second marriage. It's we had a baby at the time when I found out, and she was, not even a year and a half old yet. I thought, okay, well, maybe this is just, these kind of things happen to people. And I think I also tried to talk myself out of how bad it was. I couldn't, when we finally, when we finally got in therapy and started peeling back the layers, the fact that it had gone on our whole marriage and that I had no idea, I had a lot of shame around that. Like, how did I end up here? And what were my decisions that led me to pick somebody who was an addict and somebody that I didn't question anything.
And I think so much of how we end up with the people that we end up with is based on, the journeys that we bring to the table, the experiences that we've had or that we haven't had. And I often say, most of us spend our adult lives unpacking what happened the first 7 or 8 years of our lives. And fortunately or unfortunately, the people that show up in our lives are also often a direct reflection of that culmination of experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's that theory that you bring people into your life and situations to heal past traumas.
Right.
And I think you do bring people in, like my broken pieces fit with his broken pieces. And to this day, very few people know the story. They more know now, but I would tell friends, after several years, and they would be like, I just can't see that happening to you. And I said, well, that was part of the shame. Like on the outside, I looked like I had it all together, but obviously, my home life was a mess.
Well, and isn't it amazing how masterful we can become at deceiving ourselves?
Yeah.
And recognizing, and thank you for sharing your story and being vulnerable about it. But the reality is in those painful relationships, there is comfort and chaos.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and I think that the piece that really like erodes our self-esteem even further over time is once you know, and then making the decision to stay.
Yes.
So you stayed another 10 years.
I did.
Tell me how that happens.
I think so. Part of what, as I'm writing my book, I kind of look at unshackling the soul, looking at the situation, being married to a sex addict, and then looking at the pillars of my life that kind of led me there. And it's, I didn't want to be twice divorced. I had grown up in the church, and I was really waiting for God to strike me down. Like, okay, one divorce was bad enough. Now I've got
Two
two.
times you are
Right.
doomed.
Oh my God. I mean, I was already on every Southern Baptist prayer chain out there, thanks to my mom, like, oh my gosh. And so I was like, I just can't do that. And so I really felt like it was my duty to stay.
That's a
And
great word, duty.
yeah, it was my duty. Like somehow in my mind, I had said, well, he's sick. And I had said, well, in sickness and health, I have to stay. And I think there was also comfort in the chaos, as you talked about. I had known chaos growing up. And so here I am with a narcissistic, emotionally abusive addict. It wasn't just an addict, it was a very unhealthy situation. And there were parts of me that recognized that. That was normal. It was familiar. It was familiar. And so I stayed in that familiar. And the more time went on, I think, you have to, when you make a decision like that, you do give up something, and what I gave up was my sense of self, my sense of peace. I stopped feeling. I really kind of disconnected from my body. And I looked at it and I said, you know what? You didn't let me know this about my spouse. So I can't trust you.
So
And
you
so I
turned on
stopped trusting.
yourself, essentially.
Oh, totally, totally
And
turned on
isn't that
myself.
amazing? Because I'm guessing from the outside, and I've only known you the past 4 or 5 years, but I'm imagining from the outside, the world looking in, you had it all.
Right. Yep.
You were on these award-winning shows, you had a
Yeah.
successful career, you had a family.
Yeah.
How does that drive that shame of staying stuck also?
Well, I think the shame was twofold. I think number one, it came from therapy. I'm all for therapy. I love
Right.
therapy.
Same.
Not all therapy is good,
True.
and we had a counselor who said, this is your secret. You don't share it with anybody. You don't tell anybody because you don't want to make your spouse feel shame for what they did.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah. And so I didn't tell anybody. And so I stuffed it down and didn't share anything that happened, and his shame became mine. And then when I chose to stay in a situation where I told everybody I'm staying, and then the verbal abuse got a lot worse and the emotional abuse, and I didn't feel like I could go back and change my mind. It was like, well, one and done. I said I was staying, so I'm staying now. And so that shame grew, the shame of staying and putting up with what I put up with, the shame of feeling like a failure in another marriage, another relationship,
Right.
All of that grew.
So aside from the shame, tell me, what were the emotional tolls that it took on you and your life? I mean, I have to imagine there was some collateral damage that came from that.
Oh, my life. Yeah. My personal life, there was collateral damage. I look at it now, and I mean, I lost friendships.
Right.
And I had one friend say, if it was that bad, you would have said something. We walked every day. You never said a word for the 4 years that you lived near me.
That must have felt like a gut punch to hear.
It did. It did. And they said it couldn't have been that bad. And then I was told, well, if you were really a Christian, you would have stayed.
Wow.
So I had my faith questioned. I had my morality. I had everything about me questioned. And that was really hard. And, you talked about when I was in Minneapolis, I did TV and radio, so pretty well known. whether I went to the grocery store or whatever. So I had this image, and I didn't want to crack the image either, because I was like, if I pulled the plug, everything would come crashing down. And I didn't know how it would impact my career. And I admit that.
And that so resonates with my own journey of recognizing, my undoing that I've been very public about was also very public.
Mhm.
And I had built this nice, neat life that if it looked a certain way, nobody
Right.
was going to see the crack in the facade.
Yep.
And I think that held until it didn't.
Yep.
And the fact of the matter is I know the discomfort of showing up in inauthenticity.
Yes.
And there is a tremendous erosion in just your sense of self, to where literally you don't know what's real and what's not real anymore. Did you have an experience similar to that?
Oh, absolutely. And I didn't know what was real and wasn't real in relationships.
Right.
And it really, until I went through my divorce, I would say that was when I knew what was real,
I love
because I lost a lot of friends.
and I will say one of the most painful things in my own journey was the recognition of friendships that I had spent a lifetime building that were not there when I needed them.
Not there.
That was the hardest part of rebuilding.
Well, and it's one of those things too, not just not there, but saying, we don't believe you.
Right.
It couldn't
That's
have been
painful.
that bad. And I was like, are you kidding me?
That
You
is
know,
painful.
right. Like, do you not understand the emotional, I didn't even realize I was emotionally abused until after my divorce. My therapist said, all right, so just so we're on the same page, you realize you were emotionally and verbally abused. No, had no idea. I was like, not me.
Right.
No, yeah, I made some bad decisions and I may have bad judgment, but no, I wasn't.
Here's your wake up call. You were.
Right, I was. And that was really humbling. And, that word shame, I mean, I hate it because I felt so much shame. Like, how did I not know?
Walk us forward and let's talk about the subsequent years after the divorce. What was that like for you?
It was the first time in my life that I was really by myself. I'm a single mom. So I had my daughter was in sixth grade when we got divorced. And it was trying to figure out how to make this life for her and I. And it was after just trying to figure that out, then trying to figure out how to be alone. And then dating. And you read some of my dating blogs, like crazy. This whole new world of online dating is not for wusses. Like, it's tough. It's tough. And I just, once again, I want to believe that people are going to tell you the truth, and they don't. So now you have to go into this dating world believing that people lie to you, whether it's the height, how tall they are. I'm tall. So, it'd be something like somebody be like, oh, I'm 5'9". He gets out of his truck, he's 5'6" on a good day. And I'm like, look, it's just tell the truth.
Right. And it's amazing how hard it is for people to do that. And I think in this online world, it's easy for people to be whoever they want to be. I had a therapist once that told me that dating was like marketing. And really, in the first year of knowing somebody, you are revealing your masks to each other and you take one off at a time. And I think there's a lot of credibility to that narrative. And I agree with you. If people just showed up more honest and authentic in who they were, good
Yeah,
or bad,
good or bad.
wouldn't it make things easier?
Oh my gosh, just make things easier. And that was what I found, is that here I had been on this path of discovery and healing. And, I'm like, let's talk about real stuff. I don't want to have superficial conversations. And they're like, crazy woman,
Right.
And it was interesting. It was a great learning experience, but at the same time, I hated it.
Well, I think it says a lot about the norms and how we're conditioned in society. And for women, especially, I think there is still this expectation in many circumstances of, I need you to fit in this neat little box of what I expect you to be like. And I can imagine you showing up as this tall, beautiful woman who's accomplished and successful and doesn't necessarily look like they need a partner. I can imagine that intimidates the heck out of a lot of people.
Maybe that was it. I've heard that. And it was like, hey, I know what my crap is. I've unpacked my boxes.
Right.
and I'm very aware of it. I don't need somebody to complete me.
And I don't want to be your stretch goal.
No, no. I love that term. No, I'm like, I'm looking for a life partner, and I don't know if it include marriage or not, or what that may be, but I'm not looking to date 100 people at once. And I don't know what you're expecting, but I'm also kind of opinionated, and I'm not afraid to tell you what I think because I've been through the ringer. Like, I lost my voice before in a relationship. I refuse to ever do that again.
I think that is so powerful. And I don't think that's just something that applies to a woman. I think it applies to anybody. I think we can end up in relationships that squelch our light or our ability to acknowledge it and own who we are. And the thing that I really hear loud and clear and is resonant in your journey and in mine as well is we've done the work. And again, I'm not saying that there is perfection in that story, but there is a willingness to unpack the messiness of our own lives to show up more authentically for ourselves that then attracts people who are healthier. Is that pretty accurate?
That's totally accurate. And I look back at my second marriage and the fact that it fell apart, and I thought, how vulnerable was I in that marriage? How present? No, I mean, I accepted a lot less because I thought I deserved less, and I kind of kept my relationship like that. And I had to take a really big look at that and say, that's not what I want. And I couldn't have a relationship with somebody super deep when I wasn't willing to go there myself, with myself.
That's really valuable. I couldn't have a deep relationship unless I was willing to go there myself.
Right.
For anybody listening, I think that's a good checkpoint, Charlie, to ask yourself, are you people talk about the relationship they want. Are you really willing to, and I'm going to go back to use your word, make the effort in your own life to get what you say you want?
Yes. And that was it. I had to make the effort to know myself and to look at all the ugly corners and the dark corners and shine light on painful past and childhood and things that were really difficult to deal with. And I had to really look at those and come to terms with the young girl I was then and the woman that walked down the aisle and got married and say, okay, let's take a look at the pain. Let's work through it and figure out, so that I don't end up here again. And so all of a sudden you're in this world of dating and you're like, I'm pretty healthy. I'm pretty self-aware. People are like,
I think dating is a fabulous mirror about the places that are still not healed, quite honestly.
Oh my gosh, it is. It is. And what I found for me is like, I had made all this progress, but I still had a lot of work to do in relationships because I don't think you can really work on a relationship when you're not in one. Like I thought I thought I could date really well until I started dating. And I was like, okay, like I don't know how.
And it takes sacrifice. And if you've spent all these years losing your independence to find your independence again, there's a real necessary discernment in how willing are you to give that up?
Right. Right. And how willing are you to give it up? And what are you going to compromise on? What are those big things? And so I really came up with my boundaries. Like, these are the things I want. Like, we started this conversation out. I'm not doing a fixer upper. If you've got a super messy life and you're just messy, and that's fine. I'm not going to fix you. I'm not going to be here to clean it up. You've got to, have your life together and be pretty self-aware. And that was the bottom. I mean, I was not compromising on that.
And you shouldn't, nor should anybody else. I mean, if you had to reflect back, what do you think are some of the biggest pitfalls in moving into a season of dating from a healthier station point?
You see everything.
Okay.
I really think that somebody sits down and you're meeting them for a drink, and all of a sudden it's like red flag, red flag, red flag, and you're like seeing it. Where before you probably weren't as self-aware. But here I was doing the work. I knew what red flags looked like because I had missed so many for so long. I was like, oh no, I need to know what the red flags are. And so I would see them and I'd be like, oh, do I compromise on that? And then I'd have that internal dialogue. Like, is that a deal breaker?
And then
Maybe.
you're not present.
Right now, I'm not present because I'm totally thinking to myself, I don't know. You're watching the TV over in the corner a lot versus talking to me. Oh, you just checked that other waitress out as we're sitting here. That feels disrespectful. Am I being really picky? And so, yeah, now I'm not there. Now I've gone down, plus I've now gone down this road, that there's no coming back from. Like I'm all the way in my head. I'm down the road thinking, you're kind of a jerk and you just checked out that woman's butt and I'm sitting right here and oh my gosh, what does that say about you? And what does it say about me? I picked you.
Well, right. And again, then there's a whole nother path to take with your therapist on that.
Oh yeah, no, trust me. She heard. I would walk in, I'd be like, I picked the same kind of person again. He looked different. He sounded different. How did I pick the same person again?
And isn't it amazing? I've always looked at it as we pick the same people in different clothes.
Oh my gosh.
And, like in the honeymoon phase of, oh, this feels wonderful. And, oh, they're the one. And, how quickly you can move into that. And I think that's those unhealed pieces of ourselves that are still so, I'm going to use the word desperate because that's actually kind of what it is. To be in a relationship, I think society places a real value on being in relationship. And if you're not in one, especially over a protracted period of time, I think there is a lot of stigma put on the fact that something's wrong with you and you're defective in some way.
Sure. I mean, we've all heard it. You're too picky. You must be too picky.
Right. And when somebody in dating told me they were too picky, I immediately knew they had a problem to commit.
It's like, wait a minute. So I'm too picky, but yet I have these standards. And what we're really not saying is, look, you're just not the right fit for me.
Right.
You're great for you. It's just not the right fit. But we're so afraid of hurting somebody's feelings. We don't say that. And so,
at the peril of not worrying about hurting our own.
Right.
I think that's the thing to really to filter down here is we move forward in things when those red flags are waving, knowing this is a train wreck waiting to happen. And we go forward because we're so desperate oftentimes or put upon by what society's reflection of us is in being defective or unworthy or not good enough to be in a healthy relationship.
Yep.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot. And so, I mean, I found myself going through the same thing. One failed date after another. And so I started blogging about them because I would find the humor in them, because there were so many funny things that happened. I went on a date one time with a guy. It was our second date. He didn't remember our first date and it was only like a week and a half before. So, I
want some of whatever he's having.
I was like, what? And at first I thought he was joking. No, he didn't remember me at all.
Isn't that crazy?
Then I started like messing with him. And so he thought I was psychic by the end of the date because I was like, dude, how do you not remember going out with me? But it was just like, so I would blog all these funny stories and I had so many women come up and they would say, oh my gosh, and men, like you blog about my life. Like I thought this was just me. And it's like, no, it's tough. And the older you get, it's tough. And you think all those games are gone. No, all the games were still there in my 40s.
Isn't it amazing though to see how many people physically get older but emotionally are still stuck in the same toxic crap that you did in your 20s?
I know. And I think that was it. Like I had really healed a lot of pieces of me. And every failed date was another lesson. It was another chance to look at myself and say, okay, what did we learn on this one? And it wasn't what did we learn about them? It was like, what did I learn about myself? And like you said, I was picking so many of the same people and they looked different. And I was like, I go to my therapist, Deb, and I was like, Deb, I didn't get help. And she's like, all right, let's blow that up. Let's look at the traits that you're picking and why. And it was once again, that comfort in a chaos. I picked chaos, and that's where I was like, okay, it's time to put into practice these healthy things I've learned. I thought I was going to walk in the dating world and just be ready to go. And I still have a lot to learn.
How much do you think that being a fixer, and I'm going to use the words people pleaser, because I'm guessing you had a little bit of that in your history.
Oh, yeah.
How much do you think that played into some of the trials and tribulations you had in dating and the people you attracted?
Oh, I think huge. I think especially narcissists love empaths. So, here I am, and yeah, we just picked each other. And so, yeah, I think a lot of like my codependent stuff that I was working so hard on getting rid of, because when you're married to an addict, you can either be an addict or you can be a codependent. And I was a total codependent people pleaser, fixer, and that's what I knew. And so to not go into that mode was really tough at first. I mean, it was like sitting on my hands, like, don't do it. Don't talk with your hands. Don't do it. And it took a lot of work not to repeat all that.
That so resonates with me, and what you said. You can be an addict or a codependent. I spent a lot of years in Al-Anon. I'm the child of an alcoholic, and I've spent my entire life around addicts also, and really recognize that so many of those patterns and behaviors, you attract them because they're comfortable. They're known. And I am one of those people that believes that sometimes the devil is the better than the one you don't know. And frankly, that's bad information. Staying in a relationship because you know what you know, even though it's eroding your soul and is incredibly painful, is not the better choice.
No. I had a therapist explain it to me once, and I thought this was such a great analogy: new genes and old genes. So the dysfunction, the people pleasing, the things that you picked before, they're an old pair of genes that feels so comfortable. But when you get healthy, you're putting on a new pair of jeans. They're not comfortable, and they won't be at first. And just hang in there. They're going to break in. You're going to do it, but it's going to take a little while, And in my first beginning forays into dating, I was putting on the old jeans.
Right.
And I had to switch over to the new jeans and be super uncomfortable.
How long did that take, though, to get that new awareness about old jeans versus new jeans?
I would say for me, it probably played out for at least a couple of years.
And probably a lot of bad dates.
A lot more. I mean, I was the queen of bad dates. Like, and that's where I was like, how does this happen? But I mean, I picked it. And so until I started picking better, and the difference was I would pick better. And so I would meet somebody who was healthy, but maybe we just didn't have a connection. No fault of anyone's. It's just that thing that has to be there. Like, you can be healthy, I can be healthy, we can have similar interests, but it can still not be there. If you're missing that spark thingy, it doesn't matter.
And you've mentioned this a couple of times, and I think that's so important for anybody listening, that, if you're on a first, second, third, fourth, fifth date, and you recognize that it is not a fit, like, it is okay to say, this is not a fit for me.
Yes.
And be unapologetic about that.
Yeah, it's kind. Let that person move on and find their better fit.
Right.
Give yourself permission to move on and find the better fit.
I think that's such valuable information. And I also had a therapist once that said, our role in life is to be kind and honest. And the honest piece, I think, is what trips a lot of us up, because we think in being honest, we're being unkind, when really it is being authentic to your own self and being honest and kind with yourself first, and then somebody else second.
Yeah, I love the saying, being clear is kind. Be clear. Don't be ambiguous.
Right.
That was the hardest part about dating, is there were times I went on a date and I thought it went well. And then I found out it didn't go as well as I thought it did.
You got to message him that was fun and you're blocked.
Yeah. You're like, that's okay. Well, I guess that wasn't a fit, I had this one guy, he was like, hey, I really enjoyed meeting you, but it's just not there for me. Okay.
And while that may feel like a gut punch just to our soul that wants to be liked by everybody, doesn't that save a lot of time and energy on something that's never going to be a fit? Right.
And I'm like, thank you. If you know that clearly after 1 or 2 dates, yes, tell me that.
Right. I always love that you're too successful. You're intimidating to me. That was one of my favorite ones. And it's like,
what?
And I can't believe how many years I was so focused on adapting downward to meet somebody else where they were. And frankly, I did myself a real disservice in not kind of, I was standing in my own way.
Yes, you are dimming your own light. You're
Right.
too bright, and I heard that too. You're too bright. You're loud, you're opinionated, my career has been successful. I've been very blessed, but I downplayed all of it. Same thing. And that's where my fiance now, I mean, it's the best relationship I've had, and it's easy and it's fun. And I'm 100% who I am.
So far in this episode, we've unpacked the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I want to get onto the great, Melissa, because I know that through all of your travails and trials with dating, there have been many ups and downs, but it sounds like you found a keeper.
Oh my gosh.
Let's talk about life today. What's going on?
It's awesome. So we got engaged a year and a half ago.
Okay.
It's funny. So I met my fiance. We had like mutual friends.
Okay. So not online.
No, not online, which worked out great for us. We met through we met online because he sent me a message on Facebook. And then I sent him a message and didn't really think much about it. And my mom goes, well, who's this Tim? And I'm like, I don't know, Mom. I have a lot, I've got like 5,000 people on Facebook. I don't know who it is. Well, I looked into him and he looks like a nice guy. You go, what?
Did she put it in the prayer circle?
Yeah, put it in the prayer circle again. Yeah, probably did. And so, that was months later. We ended up talking and we went out on our first date, but we really just went out as friends, and there was no expectation or anything else. And then we've been together ever since. Like we just laughed and had fun. We had like 5 hours of conversations. We shut the restaurant down.
I love it. And that's so interesting because you and I met your fiance and my partner about the same time.
We did.
Yeah. So I met Gus during COVID at the last year of the last month of 2020. And literally we went on our first date. And I have to say, other than travels or trips here and there, we never spent a night apart since. And the one thing that I love that goes back to the topic of this conversation is relationships and efforts, how easy it has been to move into something that fits. And while I'm not saying it's always easy and not everything is always perfect and exciting, it's like that cozy sweater that you put on in the winter. It just fits.
It fits. It fits. And we're the same way. And what it really proved to me is before I kept trying to make it fit, and I was putting all this work into it and trying to make it fit, and it just didn't fit. And now it's just, yes, there's effort. There's effort for date nights and there's effort for, making sure that I remember to tell them things or whatever, but it's not hard. It's effort, but there's this sense of effortlessness where it's just natural.
I love that. And I think that is so resonant for anybody that's listening. The analogy of, trying to make things fit that don't fit, when you find your person, and I'm not saying there's one person for everybody necessarily, it may be multiple people in relationships. And as we've talked about today, I do think there are a lot of valuable lessons you glean from dating and from getting to know people. I think it helps you better learn about yourselves. But more importantly, what I found in dating, quite a bit myself is I learned what I didn't want. So when you find somebody that shows up, that is different, that is refreshing, that is here to meet you at your place and not change you or fix you, it's so different.
So different. Somebody who just meets you where you are, and somebody who's also present. They're present.
Right.
When you're talking to them, they're there. Somebody who accepts you. Like the thing, all my little quirkiness, and I know I've got a bunch of little quirky things, as we all do. He just laughs about them. I lose my phone 100 times a day, and even right before you and I were talking, I was like, I forgot, I can't find my phone. What if Jason tries to text me? And he went and found it for me. And it's just acceptance. It's this soul level acceptance of I see you and I really like you. And it just makes it easier versus I see you and I want to change you and I like your potential.
Well, and it's also the journey of living in flow.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
not trying to push this to be something that it isn't supposed to be. And I think a lot of us spend time forcing things. I
Yes.
wonder, I mean, you and I are at a more mature season in our lives. I mean, just
That's a
getting
nice way to
started.
put it.
We're just getting started.
Yes.
But how do you think that maturity in this season is different maybe than finding this if when we were younger? Do you think that there is something in the wisdom of doing this journey of being alone, being a single
Yes.
mom, being
Yes.
independent?
I appreciate him so much more. I appreciate the little things. And one of the things I've made the commitment is to tell him, hey, thank you for doing that. Hey, thank you for, letting me come home and just dump on you and talk to you. Or, thank you for, like this morning for I had to the cat was sick or something, you know.
And I don't have time to clean that up.
Right, right. And so it is really just seeing him and being present and things that I don't think I would have appreciated in my 20s or 30s. I really don't. I think it had to take this season of life for me to say, wow, it's the little things for me are the big things. He's consistent, he's kind, he's thoughtful, he's funny, and he's always like that. And I appreciate
And
that.
that's so important. You know, my spiritual director friend always tells me about being equally yoked in relationships. And I had
Yeah,
never really heard that term, but I think
yeah,
there's something to that. And it sounds like you finally attracted who you are.
yeah. Well, and I do. I feel like I finally did it. It's the lock and key. For a long time, my lock was broken, you know, and so I kept attracting the same keys. Well, when I got a different frequency and my vibration changed, no longer did I attract that anymore, and no longer was I attracted to it. And then along came Tim, and I'm like, wow, you
That's
know,
beautiful.
it was just
And
different.
and I really look at it from, I think we all were a little dissuaded with the Jerry Maguire moment of "you complete me," and really I think reinventing the reality is it's two people coming together in completeness, in building a relationship in interdependence and not codependence or
Oh my
dependence.
gosh, yes,
And that's so
absolutely.
different.
It is different. It is different. I wasn't looking for somebody to fix me or complete me, or I wanted somebody to share joy and life and happiness and experiences with. And I
You know,
want somebody who had their own life.
right. I find that so many people approach relationships for the fun and the excitement and all of the we went here and we did that. And really, if you think about sustainable relationships, they happen in the mundane, they happen in the day-to-day, they happen in, did you take the dog to the vet, or have you picked up the dry cleaning, or what are we having for dinner? Gus and I laugh all the time. I mean, I knew he was my person because half of our conversations are around calling each other nuts. Like, you're nuts. No, you're nuts. And I say that tongue in cheek, and perhaps we are both a little nuts, but there is this comfort and ease of just being able to be exactly who you are, unapologetically. There is such peace in that.
Oh my gosh. I mean, we love our Saturdays. We're at Costco a lot of times and we're having
God,
lunch at
us too.
Costco.
I
And we
mean,
love it. We
I've tried to
absolutely,
swear off the hot dogs, but I just can't go without it.
I know.
And frankly, Melissa, I've gotten to where I can't go to Costco. You have to go. And so the other day, Gus is calling me. He's like, the woman told me, he went and got rotisserie chicken and something. It was $25. And she's like, well, we'll see you in 2 days. And I'm just like, how dare she judge you for your Costco visit? We only go once a week. So people do use it like a grocery store, I guess.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
but again, it's in the mundane. It's in
Yes.
the vacations are fun, the
Yeah.
flashy, shiny things are fun, but it's
Yeah.
life happens in the real moments.
Absolutely. And I remember we had only been dating for probably about a month. And I said, I know this isn't really date stuff, but I've got to go to the grocery store. I've got to go to Costco. And he goes, well, let's go. I was like, really? He's like, yeah, why not? And that's where I was like, okay.
So
Because
I know
this
you
is my
guys
life.
Right. And I know you guys both have kids. So talk to me a minute. How has blending your family been?
It has been, I think because it was the ease of our relationship and both of our girls, we have an 18 and 19-year-old that live with us. And they are very much alike and they get along I mean, it's been good. It's been easy. And I think a lot of people are surprised that I also get along with his ex-wife. We have birthday dinners and everybody's together. And it's great
Well,
because
really, when everybody is happy, it's easier to be in the ease and the flow of that. And how
yes,
great that your daughter's got sisters.
yeah, she got sisters and his ex-wife, she absolutely adores. And it's more love. And by kind of going with the flow and just by how everything happened, it was like, why, I really am. I mean, I love people and yeah, let's just make the family bigger. And so we have.
Melissa, you're an inspiration to us all. And I am thrilled of being on the periphery and seeing this journey with you, to see you come fully into this season of what works for you and getting the love that not only you deserve, but was always waiting for you. Tell me what's next. Again, if you said there's nothing next plan, you have certainly accomplished plenty, but I know you've got some other things on the horizon. What do you have in the pipeline?
I do. So I'm still blogging. It's called More for Love, and it's on my website. I know you'll have that listed. But I'm working on my book, Unshackling the Soul, and really taking a hard look at what brought, and it's my story. So it's my story and what led me to the decisions I made. And so it's a lot. It's a deep book. I think hopefully it's going to resonate and be good. And then I'm going to be doing the podcast too, and talking about just kind of like what you're doing, talking about our stories, and looking at things like addiction and boundaries and growth and codependency and all of that other stuff.
Well, I'm happy to serve as a guest anytime you need one. I can talk about
Oh,
all.
you will be. You will be.
So tell me though, how has moving into this season from a healthier, more whole place, and then reflecting back on the journey that built you, how has that guided you and changed how you tell your story today? Is it different than it would have been?
Yeah, I don't feel like I have the anger.
That's wonderful.
I don't. There are moments where I'm like, that really sucked and that really hurt. But I'm honestly grateful for it, because if it meant that I ended up here, then it was all worth it. And I think I had to go through the hard stuff that I did to heal pieces of me from my past and my childhood. I had to do it. And I am thankful that I did it, so that I do get to get this season where I'm present and the healthiest version of myself I've ever been. And I'm a better mom because of it. I'm a better friend. I'm a better person, I finally have compassion for myself and self-love. And I didn't have all that before I went through all the crap.
Well, and to put that neatly in a package here, the effort was worth it.
The effort was absolutely worth it.
And I want to go back to the starting place of this conversation was about the effort being worth it in relationship. And I think the real gift is you made the effort in the relationship with yourself that subsequently has resulted in every other box getting checked.
Yeah, I had to love myself. I had to love myself. And it was a much harder battle than I thought it would be. We could talk about that for days. I only wanted to love my perfect self.
Mm.
And I had to love my messy middle of myself. And then things started coming into place.
And so inspiring. I hate for our time to come to a close, but Melissa, this has been so valuable and so appreciated. I'm thrilled that you were here and that you shared with us in just such a beautiful, vulnerable way. Tell our listeners how they can get in touch with you.
Probably the easiest way, if you go to my website. So I've got my blog, and then the podcast and the book announcement will all be there. It's melissamooremedia.com. And you can find me there. You can shoot me a message there. And yeah, I love hearing from people. So I loved our conversation today. I feel like we could just keep going.
We could, and we'll have to do it again.
Okay.
For anybody that's listening and wants to subscribe to Get Unstuck Radio show pages, you can find us at Get Unstuck Radio on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Next week, we have another inspiring guest, Stephen Hayden. Stephen is a passionate advocate for LGBT plus Q youth and is forging new systems of support through his efforts. You won't want to miss our inspired conversation. Melissa, before we wrap it up, tell me one thing you're grateful for today.
Is it weird to say my life?
No, not at all. I think that's
I'm grateful
perfect.
for my life today.
And I'm grateful for that too. Until next time, remember, every journey begins with a next step, and you too can be your own champion.